say, Lexington? Hey, Paul! Saddlebag. Hey! All right. My fellow citizens, I'm here tonight with news, good news and bad news. The bad news is that climate disruption is real, and it's getting worse. The good news is that we can still act to stabilize the climate and to watch out for the adverse effects of climate change. So I've written here tonight to
as an echo of the past.
Echo from the past. And to sound a warning, to warn you, San Diegans, that the enemy is here. The enemy, my friends, is climate denial. Fear and ignorance of danger coming, and apathy and despair. And what we need now, in this time of great danger, is courage. Courage to face the future, courage to work for what solutions we may find, courage to do the right thing, and courage to do the right thing for our country and our countrymen.
Yes.
And I want to thank you all for coming and for this, hopefully this growing activism. And now I would like to talk about solutions for the fight to come, and a call to arms, a call for my brother in arms, the Climate Mobilization Coordinator, Derek Casady.
How about this? Paul Revere coming into San Diego. The things, what he has had to go through, I'm telling you, to do this is amazing. Up into Ramona for 2 days to get to know that horse, and then to be here tonight. And at one point as he's riding down here, the horse doesn't like to have your legs tucked in and touch the horse's stomach. And it was going a little fast, and so he tucks his legs in and the horse starts doing this thing. It was really scary. Anyway.
But I stayed on.
He stayed on. And he's never been bucked off yet, have you, Paul?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, anyway.
Not on the Lexington to Concord run.
Yeah. It's so good to see you all. Now I want to introduce a man who has been active in the climate movement for a long time. Some in connection with the Rotary Club here in San Diego, and also as a friend of the founder of our university, Roger Revere. Roger Revere, as you know, is the guy that turned Al Gore onto the threat of climate change. And this speaker, our next speaker, has known Roger Revere since way back, and they knew early on what this thing is that we're talking about tonight. So please join me in a warm welcome for former Judge Bob Coates.
very much, Derek. And my first function, they tell me, is a great privilege.
Put the mic up a little closer.
My first function, they tell me, is a great privilege, and that is to introduce one of San Diego's truly great men, Bishop George Dallas McKinney. Bishop McKinney is the bishop of this jurisdiction of the Church of God in Christ. He's also one of the 12 bishops who run the Church of God in Christ internationally. And at one time, he was asked to become the chaplain for the United States Senate. That didn't quite pan out, and therefore we still have the privilege of his presence here in San Diego. And his denomination is one of the interesting denominations in that it has taken a stand on climate change. George, take the microphone, please.
Thank you, Judge Coates. God bless you. Good morning. Thank you, Judge Coates. It is a pleasure to be here at this very important occasion and to join with people who are aware of the immediate danger that we face. More than 25 years ago, I became involved in this movement through my association with the Evangelical Environmental Network and participated in writing a book dealing with this subject of climate change. Since that time, it has been our privilege, through the good graces of Judge Coates, to be involved with some of the scientists at Scripps, and we've had some of them to speak at the church. Further, several years ago, it was my privilege to present a resolution to the General Assembly of the Church of God in Christ at that national convention representing 5 million people around the world, a resolution indicating that our denomination admits the problem and will pledge to be involved because it is a moral issue and a spiritual issue, and the life of mankind is at stake. It is important that we note that World War I, World War II required mobilization of all of the resources of the nation, and by God's grace we won those wars. Now it's time to call for World War CO2, climate mobilization. It is critical that we do this. I want to mention that those who deny the climate change really embrace a falsehood that is dangerous. First, it is not possible for us to deny that we have been wasteful with our resources, and that's morally wrong. For the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, and the world and all that dwell therein. And to whom much is given, from them much is required. The second fallacy for those who deny the reality that is so clear to us today from many studies by scientists from many nations, there are those who still would like to hold that we can be exempt from the consequences of our behavior. We can make choices, but we cannot choose the consequences. It is time now for us to make a choice and wean ourselves from dependence upon the old source of energy. And as has been mentioned earlier, let us move toward utilization of the energy that God has provided for all of us, that will enable us on planet Earth to enjoy the blessings of God's good earth. And tonight I'm happy to be a part of this movement, and I pray that it will spread across the nation and take up momentum, because it is urgent, and this urgency requires that we behave in a manner of recognition that time is of essence. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you so much. You may be excused because I know you have an 8 o'clock sermon in the morning.
I hope I'll be awake in the morning.
I know, if you're awake. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Please join me in another hand for Judge Bob Coates.
have a few things that I want to say. For the last 27 years, I've been working with the climate research scientists at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. I've gotten to know them personally. I've discussed in depth what their conclusions are, and these careful people are one of the world's great resources in science, and they tell us that by the end of this century, if nothing is changed, the following cities will be among those that will be underwater: Washington, D.C., Boston, Philadelphia, Miami, San Diego, Seattle, Beijing, Sydney, and on and on and on. Can civilization possibly survive such a scenario? Where will our children and their children and their children be by then? And let me suggest that it might pay for us to remind oil company and coal company executives that they too have children and grandchildren. What a thought. What a thought. And so this reality that has been explained to me by these Scripps research scientists makes it rational for us to demand the mobilization of this nation akin to the mobilization that happened during World War II, which I am old enough to remember. I remember it very clearly. And at that time, everybody in the country felt they were part of it. I certainly felt I was part of it. I was buying my stamps for my war bonds. I was taking rolls of tin foil down to be collected for the war effort. I was doing all kinds of things when I was 6 or 7 years old. And that's the kind of mobilization that we're talking about. Every single American involved. Every single American involved. I'm privileged to be involved in this movement. And I want to thank Nancy and Derek for having the bold idea of this mobilization. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bob. You know, seeing you guys are looking out here and seeing everybody here. You guys are the folks who are in the vanguard of the new American Revolution. As Nancy said, our first revolution created democracy and gave that to the world. And now the second American Revolution is going to give the world clean energy. And this country is going to mobilize to do it, and then the world is going to follow suit. You just watch. So the next person I want you to hear from briefly is a person who has been in the forefront of the climate action movement for 8 years. He started the Citizens Climate Lobby. They have chapters all over this country. They have been to Washington over and over and over, lobbying for a tax on carbon. Last year, they made 1,086 visits to Congress and Senate offices in Washington, D.C. Please join me in a warm welcome for the founder of the Citizens Climate Lobby, Marshall Saunders.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. Good to see you too, Bob. So, hello, everybody. I was really moved when we began to sing the Star-Spangled Banner out here after midnight and seeing Paul Revere come up. And sometimes I get upset with my government. Sometimes I get upset with the Congress of the United States. But to hear you all sing